Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you to the Digital Middle Eastern FP&A Board. My name is Olga Rudakova. I'm FP&A professional, dashboard design trainer, and FP&A trends ambassador. I'm happy to be your facilitator for the evening. Our topic for tonight is the winning formula of integrated FP&A. And it is very hot topic in the FP&A community. That's why we have so many registrations. We have 526 participants from 53 different countries. 32% are senior practitioners and 48 are mid-level management. So quite a senior audience tonight. Let me walk you through the previous meetings we had at this board. And you see that quite many of them, latest ones, were digital. So if you see something you have missed, don't hesitate to go back and watch the recording. Meanwhile, let me walk you through the agenda for the evening. Today we will be speaking about the winning formula of integrated FP&A. We will speak about how to move from working in silos to XP&A. We'll speak about FP&A integration status and outlook. We'll talk about journey towards integrated FP&A. And we will see integrated FP&A for future centers of excellence. And the last topic will be technical aspects of integrated FP&A. We won't miss conclusions, recommendations, and Q&A session. And now it's time for me to introduce our dear panelists for the evening. So please join me here on the webcam and on microphone. And I will start our individual introductions with Lucas Herbert. Lucas is FP&A Director in ICMEA at Takeda. Lucas has more than 15 years of experience in various finance functions, and now he oversees FP&A organization for a diverse region with more than 35 different countries. Lucas, we are happy to have you with us tonight.
Thank you very much, Olga, for the warm welcome, and I'm also very excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Great. And our second speaker for the evening will be Bruno Massera. Bruno is CFO for the Middle East at BRF. He has almost 20 years of work experience in finance, treasury, and other business functions. And now he's responsible for FP&A and treasury activities. He has created a new team called Integrated Finance, aiming to drive finance digital transformation. Bruno, I'm glad that you could have joined us.
It's my pleasure, Olga, and look forward for the great questions coming from the audience.
I'm looking for that as well. And let me introduce our third speaker for the evening, Durga Srinivas Perisetti. Durga is a Director for FP&A and Operations Analytics at Juniper Networks. Durga has over 17 years of experience in FP&A and other business functions. Currently, he is responsible for managing overall FP&A across various functions and operational analytics. Durga, we are happy to have you with us.
Thanks for the warm welcome, Olga. Looking forward to an engaging conversation.
And our fourth speaker for the evening will be Andreas Simon. Andreas is a Regional Director at Jedox. Andreas has over 25 years of international business development, sales, and technical experience. He's expert in enterprise performance management and in many other technology areas. Andreas, we are happy to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks to you, Olga, Durga, Bruno, Lucas, to join that conversation with our customers and prospects, and looking forward to a nice evening.
I'm looking for the evening as well. Let me walk our audience through several introductory slides before we jump into the topic. First of all, what is FP&A Trends? It's not only webinars and workshops, it's a broad resource with education, strategic advisory, and research. What we can expect tonight? We can expect 90 minutes webinar full of interaction. One of interaction device will be our polling questions, so multiple choice questions, real time. Don't hesitate to participate. Certainly, you can ask your questions through the question box of the webinar. You can start right away this very minute. Networking. Certainly, feel free to connect to every speaker from the event through LinkedIn. Presentation is already available now in your handouts, and you will receive the copy of the presentation as well as the recording of the session in 2 days after the event. At the very end, we will ask you to take part in a short survey. Please don't go without filling it. It's really split of a minute, but it will help us a lot. And now I'm about to thank our technology sponsor, Jedox, Modern Enterprise Performance Management. Jedox, thank you for making these events possible. All right, going into the topic. How can we move from working in silos to an integrated FP&A? Well, currently in many organizations, it is common to have 3 separate plans. We have strategic plan prepared by top management. We have finance plan prepared by us, by FP&A, and we have often multiple operational plans prepared by different functions of the business. All these plans have their owners, have their language, and most importantly, they have their own set of assumptions. That's why these plans don't talk to each other. They exist separately. We are still in many cases working in silos, but it's time to move away from that. It's time to move to integrated FP&A when all these 3 plans come into one through bottom-up, top-down, and cross-functional integration. Let's see how we can move towards this ideal state. Let's look at some practical cases and some other scenarios, what we can do. We will look at key 4 elements of this winning formula: culture, talent, data, and technology. And we will start tonight with discussion about culture. Who else can do that better than Lucas Herbert? Lucas will be speaking about FP&A integration status and outlook. Lucas, the stage is yours.
Super. Thank you very much for the introduction to our topic. And I'm very pleased to share only 2 slides about what we have done at Takeda in order to come away from silos to a more and better integrated planning. And I think culture is a very important word around that, because the culture defines basically how we are interacting with another. And we have gone through a big transition here with regards to our planning process, and supported by digital capabilities. So what happened? Before we started with the engagement into integrating our plan across the functions and the process, we had silos, just like Olga has presented before. And the result of those silos was that we all talked in different languages about the same numbers. And hence, our story was not convincing when we needed to report our plan to the next higher level in the hierarchy. Everyone had his own drivers, his own motivations, and our story was simply not coherent and therefore not convincing. What we have done is we have brought all components into a logical and sequential process. That starts with what we call business reviews, where we are looking at our markets, that's not prepared by finance, that's prepared by a team called business operations, and is basically based on external market analysis of the market potentials. This gives us an idea whether or not and to what extent and how we can invest in those markets. As a second step, we're looking at our portfolio during the brand plans. We look at our launch portfolio, we look at our brands, and we decide based on the knowledge that we acquired during the business reviews where and how we can invest in order to have the best possible outcome. And the knowledge of these two meetings then flows into our financial forecast, where in principle, to be fair, we already know the drivers, we already know the assumptions. We just need to consolidate it, and we need to bring it into then our usual framework that is we as finance still need to provide. So we need to look at our P&L, we need to have an idea of CapEx, FTE development, and so forth. And all of this financial and non-financial information is brought together in one financial dashboard. That's where the cultural change is actually then supported by a technological vehicle to bring all the information together. That's our one key point where all our functions and users access the information. And the outcome is, as you can probably imagine, my camera, I don't know how to adjust, is that we have one message. And now our drivers, our upsides, our strong points, but also let's say where we are having gaps, can be explained by the brand potential and by the market conditions. And this gives us a much better leverage when we are going to next level and asking for investments or asking for our explaining our performance. So that is my first slide about a part that we have well established across our organization in ICMEA, in our area, and where we are very successful. Olga, if you can move to the second slide. And this brings me to another concept that we are working on. That's basically our future, where we are at an early stage. And to be quite frank, we still have quite some convincing to do in order to make this a success. So what's the idea? I would say in most of the cases, we have a finance system where we have our plans that can be fancy or not fancy with dashboards or whatever. But in principle, you load your data into there, and at some point in time, your plan is locked. And especially in volatile situations as we are having right now due to COVID, but also on top of that, because we are in an emerging market area where basically every day the political situation can change. So right now we are part of our region, just an example, is Ukraine and Kazakhstan. Both countries in the first 2 months of this new year 2022 are under a lot of political tension. So there are always movements in our countries, if this is politically driven, natural disasters as well, pandemic, or simply business driven, budget constraints of our distributors, for example, or of course, plenty of new opportunities. Anyway, what I try to say is with a locked system and our plan numbers locked in there, the plan is basically outdated very quickly. And then we are reconciling against an outdated number. Then we have the concept of a rolling forecast where you currently reassess, but that's a very finance-driven activity. And actually the idea that we are having is to go one step further, having a kind of a rolling forecast, but in a different way. What we have established are what we call several trackers in simple Power App or Power BI tools. We can program that ourselves, but of course we could also have more fancy and more established systems. And the idea is that those trackers are business owned, not finance owned. So for example, we have one tracker around our FTE data, meaning what's our hiring plan for the year? When are we hiring what resources? What level do those resources have? What function, what qualification? So it's very much an HR-driven tool. But it's something that we ask HR to update every month. So let's say a hiring is delayed, a hiring is canceled, somebody's leaving the organization, we expect we will have the position vacant for a few months because it's a core qualification that we won't be able to fill immediately. All those updates have an impact on your compensation planning. And the idea is through this monthly update that HR is doing for their own purpose, in the background, I can always calculate my FTE numbers and the financial impact. That means the next time I do a revision of my plan, I already have an updated status of our personnel expenses and the phasing throughout the year. Another example is an event tracker that we have set up where events are scheduled, and again, very much business driven. What is the brand we are promoting in that event? Is it digital versus face-to-face? How many people? What is, and then only one component is what is the budget and what is the date? And I guess you can, imagine the story is that every month we ask the countries to revisit a bit their events to say, okay, this has been canceled. We are delaying that one. Now we're moving this from face-to-face to virtual, so the budget may be impacted, the budget can be updated. What does it mean? It means that whenever I review my plan again, I can pull this information and I have an updated estimate of my spend for activity-related activities, right? And that is very helpful because for the user, it's not another finance tool where they need to key in the stuff. It gives them a business benefit, like a heat map. Where do we have how many events, how long, location, topic? We can use this to consolidate events into one. We can see how much travel will be required in order to combine all those events or bring people to those events and so on. So that's a bit the idea. Where we're saying we like to have these dynamic trackers that actually never close. And as a byproduct of those, there is a financial information that we can pull. And then whenever we have a next updated forecasting cycle, we can use this information and put them in. And then what is the effect? We don't have these huge work bumps before our plan and review of the, next review of the plan. But it should be more equalized throughout the year, which I think is in all our interest, unless you like to spend your nights in the office. But I think that's not really what we love to do, right? So that's a bit the idea. Create a business benefit and have the finance component as a byproduct, but use it. Here, as I said, still some convincing to do. Everything only works with good quality of data. So we are in the process of cleansing data, re-explaining the process. But I think if we manage to get over the hump and this is actually then working, we have a very nice product that I think everyone in the organization will benefit from. And I close as I opened this, then eliminates the silos and creates a culture of cooperation on the same basis of information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucas, for giving your presentation, giving your practical examples, and bringing in this concept of business-owned trackers, or we call them, in some other organizations, we call them business drivers. So that's something that can bring together business and finance and operations. Let me move on from here and ask our audience a question. The question will be, around how much actually how far you are in the FP&A integration. And the question exactly sounds like, how would you describe the level of your FP&A integration? One option is planning processes are not integrated. Integrated between finance and operational level. Integrated between finance and strategy level. Fully integrated. Let's see how you would answer. How would you describe the level of your FP&A integration? Planning processes are not integrated. Integrated between finance and operations. Integrated between finance and strategy. Fully integrated. 50% have already voted. Give you 30 more seconds. How many people are voting? So how would you describe the level of your FP&A integration? Let me close this poll and let me share these results with you. We see that 35% of you see this integration between finance and operations. 27 say that planning processes are not integrated at all. 21 see this integration between finance and strategy. And only 17, but maybe it's not only, it's maybe 2, it's quite a high number, the full integration in their businesses. Lucas, can I ask you briefly to comment? Is it something that you expected, the polling results?
I'm actually impressed by the 17% fully integrated. I think that's very impressive, and I think that's a very recent uptake, because I think previously when we asked this question, fully integrated was much lower. So congratulations to everybody who has achieved it. But we also still have, the bandwidth is really big. If you look at that, we still have 27% that are not integrated, and that means there's a lot of work, I believe, to be done. The 35% between finance and operational, I think it's also to congratulate, because if you bring finance and operations together, I think this is what makes your life really, really much easier, because that's where the most workload is. If finance and operations are not working well with another, that's where you lose most of the time and most of the efficiency. So I think very well done. And
Wow.
then very respectful as well. Finance and strategy, I think that's a sign for a consistent communication from the top to the organization. If the strategy can be easily integrated into an operational plan, that speaks for the clarity of the communication within the company, I would say.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so for your comment. Let me hide this polling result and let me invite all the panelists to join us here for the short, very brief discussion. Let me ask all of you this question, and I will ask with you, Bruno, with an answer. What is easier to integrate, finance and operations or finance and strategy, and why? What do you think, Bruno?
For me, it's easier to integrate finance and strategy, right? So when it goes down to the operations, especially if you have a very complex value chain, is a big challenge, right? I think here, when I see that the answer coming, that there is integration, I think in different levels, right? So for us, specifically on the local levels, at the distribution levels, at the country level, I think it's easier. When you go to the region, gets more complicated. When you get to the global operations and finance, even more complicated, right? So different levels of regionalization gets things more complicated, but definitely for me, at least, finance and strategy, it's easier to link.
Right. What do you think, Durga? Very brief answer. What's easier to integrate and why?
I think it's finance and strategy. I'll go with Bruno. The reason is once finance and strategy is aligned, then operations follow. It's a journey. At the same time, there should not be too many things to integrate. What is the common goal? 2 or 3 points which connects with the entire company and the audience, and then we can integrate. Because if you have too many things to achieve, it will be very difficult. So have those into picture, and then definitely it's finance strategy and operations will follow the suit.
Right, very interesting. It's slightly different than our polling question say, but I think it's quite an interesting view. And what do you think, Andreas? What is easier for you to integrate, finance and operations or finance and strategy?
I think it's a little bit dependent on the technology you're using, but like my colleague said already, finance and strategy is much more easier to integrate. In operations, we see a lot of different data silos, people sitting on data silos, different models, and to move that under one roof is much more complicated.
Perfect. Let me move it back to you, Lucas. Very brief answer because you've already commented on the poll, so I don't know if you have anything left to say, but what's easier for you, finance and operations or finance and strategy?
Yeah, I have not much more to add, really. I think finance and strategy is the more crucial part for success, and I think that's where the focus need to be. If you have a good integration with operations, but then your message or your target or the way that you position your forecast is not aligned with the strategy, all the quality that you achieved through the integration with operations is probably not bringing the benefit you expected.
Perfect. Thank you all for your answers, and let us move on to the next part of the equation, next crucial ingredient, talent. And let me at this stage pass the word to Bruno. Bruno will be speaking about the journey towards integrated finance. Bruno, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Olga. Before I start the journey towards integrated finance, I would like to explain a little bit about the context of the organization and the value chain, because each company and each value chain requires a different approach in terms of integration. BRF is one of the biggest food companies in the world, so we produce and sell about 4 million tons per year. So if you guys here from Middle East think it's the same consumption as Turkey and Saudi together in 1 year, right? So it's a lot of food that we produce and sell. Specifically in Middle East, we have two strong brands. We have Banvit in Turkey. We have Sadia here in GCC, plus 50 years into the market. But now, when I go to the next slide explaining the value chain, things get even more complicated, and then you will understand why it's important, even more important, to talk about integrated finance. When we move to the next slide, we can see how complex is the value chain of BRF, which requires a truly strong collaboration, right? So by the end of this slide, hopefully you are going to be willing to pay more for the chicken that you consume after you understand how complex it is, right? So everything starts with the grains, right? So we need to purchase the grains, the corn, the soybean meals. We need to process them into feed. We need to have the grandparents that will produce the breeders, that will produce the broilers, that we are going to slaughter and that we are going to deliver into different markets. And all of these happens in different countries. We have a platform in Turkey, we have a platform in Saudi, we have a platform in the UAE, we have a platform in different countries around the world, right? So in order to create value, we need to maximize the value chain. And in order to maximize the value chain, we need a strong collaboration among many different areas. So we have the commercial team that will put a demand, that will share the demand. Then we have the S&OP team in between, trying to match the demand with the availability in terms of production. Then we have the production team that will need to produce what has been requested and demand. Then we have us, finance, trying to put all of this together to see how our financials will look like and to see if it's aligned with the strategy. As we can see here, so a complex value chain requires a strong collaboration. That's why you're going to see in my next slide a short journey how we have been performing since 2018 and 19, when we decided it was time for us to improve the way that we were collaborating internally. When we see the next slide, 2018-19, we used to have a very traditional planning process, using Excel, using email, using face-to-face communication. For example, so the commercial team, the planning team, they would demand using Excel. Then the S&OP team would consolidate the demand. Then we'll discuss with the production team. Availability would be shared again by email. We put everyone together in one place around the world to discuss the next quarter. So then we decide to bring a new tool to facilitate this kind of collaboration, avoiding such exchange of emails, Excels, etc. Then we implemented in 2018-19 an integrated business planning tool in order to facilitate the collaboration from the beginning, from the demand, availability, discussions with marketing, discussions with the commercial team, us from finance in one single platform, right? But also this platform can help us bringing automated inputs and alerts. Okay, prices are moving from one week to another week. So what are we gonna do about? Volumes are dropping. We don't have this availability. Stocks are increasing. So when we have a tool that will help us to manage the full value chain, again, a lot of value can be generated. But if you have a Ferrari, you need to learn how to drive the Ferrari. Otherwise, you'll not be able to maximize all the potential that tool can deliver to you. That's why specifically in Middle East, we started a journey in 2020 of business partnering. So we put in place a strong collaboration between the planning at a regional level and finance in order to maximize the value for the company. So also we are able to put in place a more frequent planning process. So instead of running only on a quarterly basis, we have weekly updates using the IBP tool, using other simulation tools that we prepared in-house. So first, start with the business partner mindset. Okay, how can I add value to the business? How can I collaborate with an S&OP, the commercial team? Then in 2021, we keep progressing the maturity of the IBP plus the business partner. Let's move not only from finance as a business partner mindset, but also to the non-finance people, right? So then we start going much more to the markets. We improve the way that we communicate the messages for the non-finance team. We explain to them, to the non-finance, what finance means when we are saying a few things. So this kind of close collaboration help us to leverage the tools that we have internally. And also we put in place a very strong agenda and focus on the data visualization journey, because as we know from finance, we love Excel, reporting, tables, etc. But it's very hard for our stakeholders to understand. So if we're able to put in a way that they will understand easier what we are trying to explain, and with a clear message, we can generate much more impact. But then I got a chance, end of 2021, to redesign the finance structure, not only for the Middle East, but for the full international markets, taking over as the CFO for the international markets. This allow me create a new area called integrated finance. And integrated finance is an evolution of FP&A, however, with the business partner mindset, also with a strong digital finance transformation agenda, right? Now, as Lucas mentioned before, we don't want only look to what's going on in the week, the month, the quarter, but how can we prepare and bring software, simulations, tools that will facilitate in terms of the forecast, right? Now we have the data, we can build the data visualization tools, we have the mindset of business partner, we need to move ahead, bringing more insights about the future. And this is the role of the integrated finance in 2022 as we keep progressing in our journey. And if we can see in the next slide, what are the main goals of integrated finance? First, less transactional work. So no one wants to spend time with such amount of transactional work. Technology is here, automation is here, so we need to bring more automation. First, we need to stop talking about the past and talk more about the future. What will happen? What the drivers will be and how this will change our forecast. So we need a much more agile tools in order to prepare the simulations and replanning. So we need to improve the forecast accuracy. Lucas was mentioning about the geopolitical situation in the region. So in our industry specifically, every day is a new day. We have news every day. We need to be very agile. We need to create tools that will facilitate this scenario planning. Then we need to keep advancing with the business partner mindset to support decision making, right? So we finance only look at the past, truly we don't add any value, right? We start adding value when we bring the insights for the future to make decisions that will add value to the business. And then this links with the next, that is the finance digital transformation, especially using data visualization and analytic tools in order to help us to be better business partner. And finally, this area is also responsible for the finance excellence and the people development. On the finance excellence front, so the idea is continuous improvement. How can we improve the process? How can we standardize? How can we share best practice across the international markets? And people development, and keep focus on the people agenda. How can we make our people, upscaling them, make them better every day from a business partner and from a technology perspective? So in a way, I'm very happy that we are discussing integrated finance. So integrated finance is the way forward, because only working together with other areas with a business partner mindset, leveraged by technology, we are going to be able to create true value for the organizations as finance function. Thank you very much, Olga.
Thank you very much, Bruno, for such a nice presentation, and I'm very thankful to you for bringing in this concept of business partner mindset and about relevant skill set and developing people. This is truly one of key ingredients to this winning formula. Let us move on from here, and I want to ask our audience something. By the way, before I ask you questions, don't forget to ask our speakers a question. You can drop it anytime into the question box. And now let me start another polling question. I want to ask you, what is the main barrier on your way to an integrated FP&A? So let me launch this question for you. What is the main barrier on your way to an integrated FP&A? Lack of knowledge about the subject, lack of skills in FP&A, lack of support from other parts of the business, or systems and processes as an barrier. How many people are voting already? What is the main barrier on your way to an integrated FP&A? Lack of knowledge about the subject, lack of skills in FP&A, lack of support from other parts of the business, systems and processes. Most of you have voted already, so I'm really looking forward to know the results. Let me close this poll and share the results with you. Okay, we have most of the people saying that the main barrier on the way to an integrated FP&A systems and processes. 36% of you saying that lack of support from other parts of the business. Truly, it's not one-sided journey, it's both sides need to be involved. 10% say the lack of knowledge, and 9% lack of skills. So quite a nice distribution. And let me move on from here and start a mini discussion between our speakers. So please, dear panelists, join me here on the webcam, and I will start this question with you, Durga. Is integrated FP&A for everyone, or companies should meet certain criteria before going onto this journey? What do you think?
I think it should meet certain criteria. As Bruno has mentioned about it, for integrated FP&A, it's a journey. First, people should understand what is the purpose of FP&A. It is just not about throwing numbers and more numbers. It is about how we add value to the business organization, and that comes with first understanding the business. You have to take time out. I've seen a lot of people, finance, in fact, in my own team 5 years back, saying that we are finance people, why should we learn business and operations? That mindset should change. Next comes system and process, as you mentioned about the poll question also. It wasn't surprising for me. A lot of people see system and process not our domain. FP&A is about we provide numbers and that's it, our work is done. Definitely not. The world of FP&A is changing, and we need to embrace system and process. Yes, there has to be a push and support from leadership, but if we make system and process our friends, as I would say, understand, make the first effort, what happens with an integrated strategy, then things will move in the right direction.
Right. Maybe these steps preparation for the journey. Maybe they are part of the journey already. Let's see what Andreas thinks. Is integrated FP&A for everyone, or we should meet certain criteria first?
Personally, I think integrated FP&A is for everyone, of course. Otherwise, the topic would be useless here in our discussion. But like my colleagues already said, it's about the culture which you have to implement first and before you're joining or going on that journey. And it's a process. From my point of view, it's not having everything in once and doing a big bang implementation. It's a kind of think big, start small, but deliver quickly and go through the different stages, which is the process and not the focus on the process, not on the target at the end.
Right. Lucas, what do you think? Is it for everyone or not?
Yeah, I'm in line with what was said by Durga and Andreas. Clearly, the system comes last, right? You need to understand what the system should do. That means you need to understand your business, and then you can develop your system accordingly. I think I still would like to comment quickly on the system feedback that we received here, and I think the problem in this is that finance has still not really made up its mind how to deal with systems. I think in the past, the expectation was IT is going to build my system, and I'm there. I don't need to worry about the system and technology and so on. And I think these times, to be honest, have passed, because of course there are very sophisticated systems that are in the market, and I think if you're a global company, you need to have those. But there's also a lot of things that you can do. Finance itself, if we talk about Power Apps, Power BI, this is not for a global company, but it can provide incredible benefit to smaller organizations, like a part of your finance business. And this is something you can develop yourself. But you need to build up that skill set within FP&A and lose this fear of the systems being an IT domain. No, we need to understand the business as FP&A professionals as much as we need to have affinity to systems to understand them.
Right, thank you. And last word to you, Bruno. What do you think? Is it for everyone or not?
First of all, I love this question. I think we could spend 1 hour only discussing about this, right? So for me, first, let's start conceptually. What is integration? Truly, integration for me is a mindset. You can have the best tools in the world. You can have the best support from the leadership. But if we don't know how to collaborate, how to integrate, we're going to fail. So it's very easy to blame systems, process, lack of support for things that we are not able to do. So I always like to say that to change the world, start with yourself, right? So in order for us to integrate finance with or into other areas, we need to learn how to collaborate with them. We need to learn what they need. We need to learn how can we add value. We need to learn how can we translate the data using the finance lens into actions, right? And then the systems and process, they will enable us to do that in an easier way, right? But it's very interesting. Again, for me, integration is a mindset, and everything starts with us.
Right. I really like the way how we covered all the aspects from mindset, skill set, technology, partnership in many presentations, and this question in particular. Let's move on though, because we are about to hear about next chapter about FP&A integration around data, and not only data, many other aspects. We'll hear Durga speaking about FP&A for future centers of excellence. Durga, the stage is yours.
Thanks so much for the warm welcome, and thanks for all the panelists. I'll start with the Juniper. Juniper is a $4.7 billion company. It's a networking company, been in existence for 26 years into operation. Our vision is engineering simplicity. So we have clients across the world. Some of them are leading service providers, enterprise, as well as cloud customers. In a nutshell, we want to make life simple in a complex environment. So that is there.
In the next slide, I will say our earlier panelists mentioned about integrated FP&A. How we have made it happen in Juniper architecture. If you could see, it is a combination. For an integrated FP&A to work and service offering, we should have both breadth and depth. We start with the core FP&A, which is where it drives the entire vehicle, if I would say, about doing the planning, forecasting, other activities, the management reporting. These days, it's just not about reporting in one stack. We need to, based upon the business needs, we need to change ourselves. I'll give you an example in Juniper. 3 years back, we used to report by technology variant, which is routing, switching, security. As the customers have demanded about different structure, we had to move to something called business cases, which is about cloud, it is about security, connected security, and other elements. To do all these things in FP&A, I touch upon the data stewardship. It's extremely critical. I would say it is the foundational element of a building. If you don't get your foundation right, the entire building collapses. So if you want to make any reporting transformation, if you want to do insights, if you want to do automation, data is a foundation. This is where, as Bruno has mentioned in the earlier also, FP&A team, especially the finance folks, have to make data their friend, have to get down to the details, understanding, hey, what's happening in data? Is my data future ready for insights and analytics? A lot of people, what they do, just give a data structure. After that, okay, this is the technology problem. No, it's not a technology problem. It's a combination. You provide the vision, any tool can implement it. Next comes the sales comp support. This is quite interesting, which we try to implement in Juniper. We always believe there are only two functions in any company. Function which sells and all other functions which enable them to sell. So let's say, example, a sales guy wants to sell, but he's always worried, will I be paid next? Will I be paid in the right fashion? What will commissions? Then his mind will be not in the same place. So this entire function, sales comp support, ensures that everybody is paid on time, all analytics are there, to give them a sense of assurance that we have your back covered and you just deliver. The last aspect is KPI dashboards, which my earlier panelists have also mentioned. It's extremely critical. The world of FP&A is changing towards a transformational journey. A part earlier used to be analysis. I would say it is moving slowly but surely to analytics. To do that journey, we have large tons and tons of data. But what to make meaningful sense of the data? That's where the KPI dashboards, the visualization, analytics come into picture. And with this, all these functions, it has a breadth and depth across the board. What did we achieve? I'll show you the fantastic journey which GBS FP&A and Juniper has achieved. If you go to the next slide. Perfect. So this is what it is. I will spend some time on typically what happens in a shared service and a center of excellence. It always starts with cost arbitrage. You will have a limited road. People think that, hey, a person is having $200,000 there. In India, it costs 70, which is the natural case. We have limited role. We'll call it as transaction limiters, tons and tons of money. But what is interesting is some people have been exceptional in translating this model from shared service to center of excellence. How do we do that? Once we give a sense of assurance that yes, we are doing it rightly, then the portfolio expands. As you could see, we started the journey in APAC region. When I joined, I think 2015, 16 people were there in FP&A. Then we doubled it, where we expanded our territory to America, EMEA, and other things critical to us. There will be some volatility here because of portfolio expansion. That's where leadership was rock solid behind me as a team. After we showcased that, yes, we have the wherewithal to deliver, then we went to critical areas, wherein forecast ownership, the sales process, OPEX. So there was some stabilization period from 2017 to 18. And then after that, the pivot started. So enhanced ownership, driving opportunities, OPEX. What are the drivers? Co-owning the forecast accuracy. If you look at typically what happens in shared service, in a typical shared service, they say, hey, these are the data, can you churn out the data, give it to me. The heavy lifting of analytics is done only with onshore team, or what I could say headquarters. But in this model of a center of excellence, both come together and provide. Then after that, we started something called as a project horizontalization, which is an equilibrium concept where we included all the data stewardship validation provided. I'll give you a case in point. Let's say somebody is in US during the night time. Typically, he wants something urgently to be delivered to a CFO. In a normal, what happens? He will send a mail to the shared service. Shared service receives it and next day sends the data. But in this collaboration model, if the maturity is there, they will first understand what is the problem we are trying to solve. Let's say the person asks for attrition data. He or she in my team or this one provides the data for the last 3 years. This has been attrition, this is the trend, and based upon this trend, the future leading indicators are suggested. In that way, once you have maturity, the person will get immediate response rather than waiting for 12 hours. That's happened. And from there, once that journey had happened, we moved to value proposition. This was because of the business centric mindset, where we understood the business drivers and provide insights. It is a very important thing to happen. So a lot of people say analytics insights, but to provide insights, you need to invest and understand the business. Unless you earn a seat on the table, you will never be able to make this transformation. So overall, if you see from last 5 years, we have almost quadrupled our journey, and the journey has been fantastic. All this has been happening because of a business partnering mindset and also the willingness to make a change. If you go to the next slide. So what are the recipes for success, right? The quadruple journey over 6 years, what is it? We need to have an enabling culture. As Lucas has mentioned, if the culture, in our culture, is very transparent, we celebrate each other's success, at the same time, learn from our mistakes. There is a famous quote where it's saying, we should celebrate our failures, but improve upon what went wrong. So that's what we do at our company. Also build an ecosystem related processes and activities. It is very important to understand how you have an understanding of the upstream and downstream process. This is where I could relate to the poll question earlier, where 45% is the process systems. But it is also about a finance book understanding. Let's say you give a requirement. How will it impact the operation person? How will it impact the marketing person? Once you have the downstream, upstream understanding, then you'll do better. Second thing is move up the valuation of volume to value. It's just not about churning 1,000 reports. You can have one report, one dashboard, but if it provides insight, then everything will be sorted. Also, make your business partner look good. I'll give you a practical example. This year, when we did a planning for our chief revenue officer, chief sales, typically we don't give one number, we give options, right? Let's say this is the scenario. If he comes up saying that I need to invest in certain areas, perfectly fine. You can invest, but these are the opportunities where you have to divest to meet your target. In that way, you're enabling your business partner to solve and reach their financial goal. This mindset is extremely important because general perception, I see it in other companies where they're maturing, finance is being viewed as a business stumbler. Stumbler as in it's just a roadblock. Okay, this guys will ask more questions, but it will waste my time. We have to move away from it. The moment we move from a stumbling block to a business enabler, and that's the perception which the business feels, then we have won the battle. And all this journey, we need to have executive support. If you don't have executive support, it is very difficult. Also, change management. This is definitely change management. As Bruno has mentioned, as an integrated FP&A thought, we should have a willingness to change. If we don't have willingness to change, we'll continue doing that way. Then somebody else will do the job for us. So that is there. Next is invest in people, process, and technology. I can emphasize whenever I hire people, and it was difficult, right? When I sold a vision to them that it's not shared service, it's center of excellence, people will say, okay, this is not possible. But I specifically take time out in asking on 3 characteristics. One is knowledge. How much is the business knowledge, and how much is your customer centricity? What are the things which you have done to make your customer look good? What are your future plans during the interview stage? If all 3 things are satisfied, then they are right. Because we need people. People are extremely important, but we need to also have the right talent. And in future, what the way forward is self-service. After the analytics, it is not about churning 1,000 dashboards and figuring it, okay, you click on a dashboard. It's self-service, right? People log into this one instead of asking reports from FP&A. There's a dashboard, help yourself based on your login. So that is the move forward and deliver results. So in all these things, as I summarize, we need to ensure we have a strong culture. We need to also have a change mindset, a business partner oriented thought process, and to make technology systems your friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Durga, for bringing in all these aspects and all these differences between shared service center and truly center of excellence. And it's time for us to move on. And I want to ask our audience a question. Let me ask you this time a different question. So how long does it take you to update your financial plans? If something unexpected happens, how long does it take you to update your financial plan? Our financial plan is not driver based. That could be an option. Or it will have to wait till the next planning cycle. From several days to several weeks, I can change my plans instantly. Let's see what's happening in most of the organizations. Financial plan is not driver-based, or update will have to wait till the next planning cycle, or update will take from several days to several weeks, or we can change our plans instantly. I'm very curious to see the results. Most of you have voted already, so let me close this poll and let me share these results with you. We see that most of you have answered, 44% of you have answered that it takes from several days to several weeks. 36% has answered that it will have to wait until the next planning cycle. 17% answered that you can change your plans instantly, congratulations. And 3% answered our financial plan is not driver-based. These 3% is quite positive result. I'm really happy that only 3% of us don't have driver-based plans. Now I will hide these polling results and I will move on to our short discussion. So please, my dear panelists, join me here again. And I would like to ask you, Andreas, first, how do we ensure quick changes to our plans when needed? How do we do that?
Good question. We have, well, what we are doing with all our customers is ensure that we are finding the right drivers, which makes it much more easier and quicker to change plans if it's necessary and to create more different scenarios. Everything else will be very complicated.
Right, thank you. And I will move on to you, Lucas. What do you think? How do we ensure quick changes to our plans?
I think the drivers, clearly what Andreas already mentioned, I think that is the first thing you think about. More operationally, I would maybe also take into consideration that you need to get the buy-in from whoever receives the update, that maybe in your changes you just focused on the biggest drivers and you did not a full bottom-up reset of your plan. This is from my experience where companies sometimes struggle. The wording is always, let's keep it easy. We just want to have a quick update of where we stand. But then you deliver easy and then they, but I cannot drill down. And why is your brand investment as such and blah, blah, blah. So then suddenly the detail is again necessary. So I think operationally, that is probably the biggest challenge. After knowing your business, I think that's clear. There's no argument around it. System should allow it. That's something most technology can do today. But also, I think to manage the expectations, that can be a challenge.
Right, a very interesting answer. And let me ask you, Bruno, what do you think? How we can ensure that we can change our plans quickly?
So I think here, for me, the most important thing, if we're able to build trust within the organization, right? So in a world where volatility is very high, where everything is changing daily, empowering the local teams that are on the ground to make quick decisions are key. And in order to do that, we need to trust them. And in order to trust them, we need to be fully integrated in order to give some freedom for them to take a few decisions when needed. Of course, the big changes are hard to make because there are a lot of operational changes that need to be done. However, quick changes, so they can be done if we trust our people, and then they can implement quickly on the ground when things change.
Right. And what do you think, Durga? How do we ensure quick changes?
To ensure quick changes in plan, one is metrics, as my panelists have mentioned, culture is important. Second thing, next, let's never have one plan in picture. Right? So we in Juniper, we always believe something called best case scenario, the one which is the worst case scenario, and the most optimistic scenario. So in a way, we are already supporting scenario plan. Right? So essentially, depending upon the drivers, the lowest case, worst case is because all the market tanks, we lose market share. The medium cases, we sustain the market share,
but we grow at a medium pace. The highest one is we grow at a rapid pace, and enabling them. So only thing is 5 or 6 key elements are there, the drivers. You always shift between. So in that way, you're already prepared. It's like 3 sub plans, right? So in that way, it enables them to move forward. I'm very happy with the results. Also, the 70% can change the transition. That's the way the world is moving. Right? Have scenario planning inbuilt. This problem can be solved.
Perfect. We have again covered this topic from many angles. Knowing your business drivers, having trust with your team, knowing the right balance between level of detail and actually exactly having this scenario planning to actually plan ahead. Great answer. And let us move to the last presentation for the evening about technology. And this time we give a word to Andreas Salmon. Andreas will be speaking about technical aspects of integrated FP&A. Andreas, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Olga. Let me talk a little bit about why we are doing what we are doing, because a lot of our customers want to be faster in the world in terms of budgeting, planning, forecasting. They want to integrate their operations with their finance, and they want to integrate their strategy with finance. Why do they want to do it? Is because latest, I would say, since the pandemic started in 2019, everybody is clear that one budget cycle per year is not enough anymore, because everything what you did in October 2019 was invalid, or I would say at least not anymore usable when it comes to March 2020, when the pandemic hit. But also ongoing globalization, global competition, etc., increasing speed of change. That is something where the whole organization must react to, and it's not anymore the biggest one who is surviving. It's more the one who is quickly adapting to all the changes, who will survive the game. So in addition to that, a lot of data is coming, which need to be analyzed, which need to be perhaps granular analyzed, and therefore you need to have systems which are helping you to do that. And these data normally is not anymore in one system. It resides in a lot of different data silos and in different data systems, which is a problem. And in the same time, a lot of our companies we are talking to are very time-consuming in decision and planning process. We have customers who are using, which takes them 60 days to close the books or doing a budgeting, planning, forecasting session. So everything is about manual, Excel-based, very error-prone. So the challenge is that you want to be faster, but you don't have the perhaps the culture, but also the systems are missing to do that. When we go to the next slide, we are looking for we are working on a maturity model with our customers. And regardless what kind of maturity model you are taking, it's about think big, start small, and scale quickly. It's the maturity model, which is a more easier one, which we are using, is that you first start to automate everything, then you talk a little bit about collaboration, and then you might have a transform planning to create more value in using modern tools like AI and machine learning. But coming back to the automation of planning, forecasting, and reporting, and when we are looking to that automation maturity level, on the next slide, we see that a big issue is still the use of Excel as a foundation of the budgeting and planning process. So the problem is that, when I started in that area, more than 90% of the company were using Jedox as a foundation of the planning process, but now it's still more than 80%. And a lot of people are answering that 88% of business using 100 customized spreadsheets and more, and their organization are using thousands of spreadsheets to come to a result. So when we look at the next slide, how this is then leading to a very manual process, then you see that without an integrated enterprise performance management, you load initial data into an Excel sheet to distribute Excel sheets via email. And that is what we already has heard from Bruno, that when they started, they have using Excel, there are a lot of emails going back and forth, communication face-to-face, which is slowing down the process. The data entry is happening, then you need to collect the data. You cannot monitor the progress because a workflow system is missing, etc. So very manual. With integrated, with an integrated enterprise performance management, that normally is taking away all these manual processes, because it creates you create a planning model in it. You send out email and notification, which goes out automatically at the beginning of a budgeting, planning, or forecasting cycle, and then you enter your data, and everything happens automatically. You have a workflow system included, which is looking at who has already started the budgeting planning process, etc. You can do approve, reject, etc. So this is very, very important part of an automation. When we look at the next slide, not only the automation in terms of workflow and supporting the business process at the end is important, but we also heard from Lucas that good quality of data is important, and we also want to integrate finance and operations. An integration layer in our enterprise performance management products is key, because you want to integrate data from all different kind of data sources. You want to have the data available, which you want to integrate, not only for the finance system, but also operational. So an integration layer is, from a technology perspective, very, very important to build everything on top of it in terms of the business process and business applications. The last thing I want to talk about when we are going into this kind of automation is, when you look at the next slide, is that you need to have a flexible and agile system to build everything what you want to have. So there you should have many, many different ways to come to a solution. One is, a lot of people, like I already said, are using the Excel solutions to build all kind of budgeting, planning, forecasting process. So one thing is to easily convert these Excel solutions into an enterprise performance management solution into your platform. At the same time, it would be nice if there are pre-built models available, which you can start download, can configure to your needs, can tweak to your requirements, and you can use them. And at the same time, it's also important that you have a custom modeling, no-code situation into your enterprise performance management solution, which helps you to fill the gaps which you cannot support via existing Excel solution, converting them and using the pre-built models. So that is about automation. When we're looking now to the next step, when we're doing about a collaboration. When I started again 25 years ago, one person on top of it said, okay, next year we will do 10%, and everybody else was looking at it. And then there was a tool, a functionality called splashing, which is still available in most of the enterprise performance management tool, which put the 10% on top. And in terms of the seasonality from last year, it splashed down to the lowest level. Then we had these FP&A teams where top-down, bottom-up approaches are happening. So workflow came into play, really nice workflow capabilities of the enterprise performance management platforms to do approval, reject workflows, etc. to support that. Since 2 or 3 years now, we have that Gartner, and we all talk about that integrated financial planning, extended planning and analytics. Since 2 or 3 years, Gartner is coming around with this integrated enterprise performance management, which helps people to integrate finance and operations, because you're not only talking about the data of the finance, you're also looking at the whole value chain and want to identify the drivers in your operation as well, and want to integrate it into an integrated financial planning. So when we look at the next slide, that is exactly what is happening at the moment. We are having a lot of customers who have focused on financial planning and strategic planning in the past, but now going more into operational planning, reporting, analytics, performance optimization on one platform. Means a lot of people are still used Excel for their HR planning, procurement planning, IT planning, marketing, etc. But they are now moving into a platform where they can have different models for different use cases, but all these models are working together and data are flowing from the left to the right side and are integrated together. That means it supports that management wheel, which is spinning even faster, as with the situation that you can integrate all these kind of departments and operations. On the next slide, we see how important that is, because let's say the wisdom of the crowds, it's the importance of involving many stakeholders. And we heard already from Bruno that integrating finance and non-finance people is very crucial to get better results on the matching, planning, forecasting. And we see that also here that there are 30% more better results. When we look at the next slides, that is exactly what these people try to create, is to want to move away from departmental data silos and disparate systems to a holistic performance management, where we have an integrated performance management on one platform with an integration to all the different data pods which are necessary, and helping us to integrate the whole finance with operations and strategy. At the end, when we talked about automation and collaboration, now we are coming to the highest, I would say, maturity level which we have at the moment, when we want to integrate AI or machine learning into our budgeting, planning, forecasting processes. That is not everything what I would do from the beginning, but it's also supporting to having sitting on top of very clean data. So with AIs or machine learning is helping us finding data patterns, finding outliers, help us to clean the data, because cleaning the data is very important to have a really good result. So what we are always saying is about 3 years of actual data is very important to use AI and machine learning, but it's all about automation, saving time, etc. So what one of our customers now doing with our AI system is that they want to go away from this using a lot of time in trying to create 100% accuracy forecast, moving more into a driver-based automated forecast, which gives them perhaps not 100%, but they're forecasting on the main drivers, perhaps giving them a 90 or 95%, but they are now so fast that they can do that kind of forecast in between 1 day or 2 days, and that is helping them a higher productivity, giving them new insight and reduce the time spent, and a lot of reduced time for the people. Looking at the next slide, we see also where AI is supporting our customers already. It's about accruals forecasting, room revenue forecasting, where it's interesting that in one of the hotel chains, AI forecast, the automated driver-based forecast is even more accurate than what the people are creating in a manual forecast. But the nice thing is you can have the manual forecast and the automated forecast at the same time, and can learn from each other and can use both ways on getting more data and better insights. Also sales forecast, sales planning, subscriber forecast, these are all areas where AI and machine learning are already heavily used, and it's already in play. So at the end, with AI and machine learning, we are seeing on the next slide is that we want to respond faster and make better decisions, because the ease of use and transparency is given. We want to have a continuous automate forecast. So we have customers who are on a quarterly forecasting, we have a rolling forecast on a monthly basis, and we have customers who are forecasting on a daily basis already. So with very dynamic simulations and very powerful for business users and experts, because you have a data wizards or a lot of wizards which helping you creating the AI planning forecasting, and you have also at the same time an expert level where people can create and can model their own statistical models. And everything should be an integrated solution. So AI and machine learning should not be something which is a tool far away, but should be integrated with your enterprise performance management. As a summary, I must say on the last slide is to unlock the value of integrated planning and analytics for your entire business is about going through the different maturity level. Try not to focus on everything at the same time. Do your automation, then do your collaboration, do your augmentation to increase agility and free up valuable time for your people and speed up the time to value to make better decisions. And at the end, it creates exactly that self-service what Durga has talked about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andreas, for bringing in all these aspects, how technology can help us. And it's time for me to ask our audience the last question for tonight. And last polling question will relate to enterprise performance management system. So let me launch this poll and let me ask you, are you planning to introduce an enterprise performance management system for integrated planning? I already have one. That could be an option. Yes, planning to introduce this year. Thinking about it, not planning anything. Are you planning to introduce enterprise performance management system for integrated planning? I already have one. Yes, planning to introduce this year. Thinking about it, not planning anything. Let me close this poll and see how you have voted. I see quite reasonably even distribution. 36%, most of you say I already have one. Great answer. 33 are thinking about it. 16 planning to introduce this year, and only 16 are not planning anything. Quite positive answers. And let me invite all our panelists for very brief discussion. So please join me here on with your cameras, with your microphones, and I will ask Lucas first. What do you think, Lucas? What should go first? Cultural change or new technology adoption? Very brief answer.
Culture needs to go first. The system always needs to follow, because the system needs to reflect the culture the business is operating. And then, as Andreas has described, the system can then enhance and support further development, but it must reflect, I believe, the culture of the company.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Bruno, what do you think? What should go first, culture or technology?
So for me, every journey starts with the first step. Just start, right? So if you start with the technology as we did, so people will complain that collaboration is not there, and then you need to bring the business partner mindset, the cultural aspect, etc. You start with the cultural aspect, with the business partner mindset, people will complain that they don't have the tools and technology to deliver that, right? So as an economist, I would say it depends, but just start. If you choose one path, you need to go one way. If you choose another path, you need to go other way, you know, just start.
Good point. Good point. Durga, what do you think? Culture or technology first?
I think it's culture and then technology, because technology is medium. So people, I mean, it's divided. The opinion is divided, as Bruno mentioned. Let's make a start. But if the culture doesn't enable that, somebody was why do you want to make additional work? It puts burden on us. Already we are start for much needed time. So culture first, embrace change, communication, and technology will follow.
Right. Okay, that's your view. And let's see what Andreas has to say. What should go first, culture or technology?
As a part of a technology company, my heart is, of course, always beating for technology. But I must agree that culture is an important, very, very important factor, and it helps us delivering the projects we are doing if the mindset is the right one.
Exactly, exactly. So without culture, we cannot actually bring in technology. Thank you all for all your answers. And I would like to move on. And for the sake of time, since we have many, many questions in the question box, let me jump right away to two questions. And I will start here. I will start with you, Lucas. The first question addressed directly to you. How do you build the culture for developing integrated FP&A?
Sorry, it was cutting. Can you repeat? How what?
How do you build the culture for developing integrated FP&A? How exactly you build this culture?
A lot is around conversation, and I always also agree. I think Bruno has made very good reflections and thought. It is the first step, and you need to start the movement. At the end of the day, I think it is the success or the failure that will, then give you a push. For example, we had an experience. Takeda went through a very big acquisition. Our first forecast afterwards was not so successful because we had different cultures still in the company, and everyone had his way of thinking about the numbers. And only 2 or 3 months later, we were really in a completely different world, because the feedback on the first forecast was not so good. And it was very clear for everyone in the company that we needed to do something. And from there, we developed a kind of a momentum where we see the benefit. It's getting better and better the closer we are working together. And then technology helps, the conversation helps, the listening, you need to listen, you need to provide a support. And then from there, I think the train is not stoppable anymore.
Right. So trial and error, seeing good results, and eventually moving further and further. Really nice answer. I like it a lot. And my next question will be to you, Bruno. Bruno, how do you transfer finance team to a business partner mindset team? How you manage to do that?
So very good question. I think it's linked with the culture, but I would say the first thing here, you need to lead by example, right? So people will mirror what they see. So needs to start with your leadership team, needs to start with myself being a business good partner, then people can see what needs to be done. Second one, then you start training and communicating properly what is required to be a good business partner, right? So what are the skills that a good business partner have? So what needs to be done? How do you connect with stakeholders? I would say this is the second. And the third one, you need to practice, right? So you need to get closer to the stakeholders. You need to talk to them to understand what are their needs. You need to run, fail, learn, right? And again, so as the leaders give you feedback, so then people will learn about the business partner. So I would say these three: leadership, training, practice.
Right, very nice. And run, trail, learn. That's a nice formula. And you see that answers to questions why. It's actually a lot involve lots of starting, lots of practicing, not ready-made answer, but really getting there and trying. Thank you both of you for these nice answers. And my next question goes to Durga. So Durga, question to you. To which extent your center of excellence is involved in business decision making?
Fully integrated business decision. That's a very good question. Thanks for this one. So that's the essence of center of excellence. So if any investment needs to be made or divestment, we are fully involved. So any decision has to be done in any scenario, or let's say, for example, the plan has gone awry, or in the middle, we want to change some assumptions. We will recommend it, and that changes will be implemented. So we're fully integrated on that perspective.
No, that's a state that many companies can envy, fully integrated. Great answer, Durga. I couldn't expect any less than that. And my next question goes to Andres. What is the biggest challenge to create this new area looking for technologies and processes? So what's the biggest challenge to create this new area in business, as I understand this question, to create, to look for technologies and processes?
Let's see, at the end, you need to know what is very important for you in the company and in your business, and what fits for your business. Not every platform, every tool is made for every company. So I think very important to look at your culture, your processes, what you would like to achieve, and what is the process, and when you want to do it. So, and then decide for the tools which are available in the market. I think there are a lot of very good tools available. It's very important that you know exactly what you need before, and that it should come out of your own company, and define the process important.
Right. Okay, and I have quite a broad question to all of you. It relates to overall skill set. We've mentioned a lot. We spoke about culture, we spoke about mindset, we spoke about processes and technology, but I want to elaborate a bit on a skill set. Which skills do you consider most crucial for an FP&A team to manage this transition to integrated FP&A? So, and I will start with you, Lucas. Which FP&A skills are most crucial?
I'm always first. You don't give me time to think. But I would say it is, I think, a lot of what Bruno has mentioned. And I mean, overall, it's a give and take. As finance, we are a support function. So we need to provide a package to our business partners. We need to add value. That starts with giving them visibility on their spend, on their budget, to further advising how they can maybe leverage a better cost structure and so on. So we need to offer something to the business. We cannot always just request numbers. And we need to have the agility and the dynamics and the willingness to be open to learn about the business. You cannot always just cut cost and at the same time understand, request more top line. You need to understand where actually are we spending maybe too much and it's okay to cut, right? And what is absolutely untouchable. And you can only get this feeling if you listen to your colleagues in the business. If you make the effort to, like I suggested our flow, right? With if you sit in a business review and you understand the market dynamics and the brand plan and you understand the brand portfolio, then you can challenge. Then you can say, why are we launching this brand here? The market will not grow. The contribution margin is very bad. We should not launch. But at the same time, this product will be a hit based on all we've heard in the other sessions. And then you are a credible partner, right? And advisor to the business.
Right, very nice answer and very vivid example. Thank you for that, Lucas. It certainly pays off asking you first, you come up with such an interesting examples. And let me move on to you, Bruno. What do you think, which skill is most crucial for FP&A team to manage this transition?
Again, very good question, right? So I think here I have a son. He's 3 years and a half, almost 4 years, right? And now he's watching many different superheroes cartoons, right? When you think about the superheroes, always the team have different superpowers, right? When I think about a team, it's the same. So in order to build an FP&A team, you need to have different profiles because it's very hard to find in one person all that you need. So then you need to have the analytical guys, very strong, data-driven, able to extract data and insights from the data that you have. Then you have your technical guys, very strong financial, accounting, management accounting, etc. And then the third one, you have your social skilled guys that will be able to connect, that will be able to communicate, to tell the stories, to engage your stakeholders. When you have the combination of these three, then you have your super FP&A team.
Right, that's very nice answer. Really team angle. Thank you for that, Bruno. And let me move on to you, Durga. What's the crucial FP&A skills we need?
I think it's not one single skill, as Bruno has mentioned, it's a combination. But if I have to single it out, it is about communication and the ability to storytell. A lot of finance folks do excellent modeling. They are genius, they can be Einsteins, but they lack in the art of storytelling. You might have the best of the model, but if you are not able to articulate, if the other person is not able to receive your ideas, you'll go nowhere. So communication, business storytelling, and analytics.
Great, great list of skills, Durga. And let me move on to you, Andreas, finally. What's the key skill FP&A needs to manage this transition?
Exactly the skill which Bruno, Durga, and Lucas had already talked about. I have nothing to add to that. It's about a team effort. It's about different skill sets you're playing together. You cannot win alone. It's about start collaborating.
Great answer. Great session overall. I think we've covered all the ingredients for the successful formula of integrated FP&A. Let me thank you, my dear panelists, for being here tonight. Let me invite all of our audience to take part in our survey in 2022. So when you receive this handout, be sure to click the link and take part in it. Let me invite you to the upcoming webinars, FP&A Trends webinar, XP&A in Action, so really something to connect it to today's topic, and another one, the future of business modeling, moving from Excel to an integrated FP&A. And at this note, I really want to thank our sponsor for tonight, Jedox and Modern Enterprise Performance Management, for making this event possible for us. And please don't hesitate to join us in any way that suits you most. FP&A Trends global community is open to you, so choose whatever works for you. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Bruno, Durga, Lucas. Thanks, Olga. Bye-bye.
Very much.